Hi, everybody. Come on in.
It's Casual Friday.
It's a Tuesday. So I've been away for a few months, which is necessary, but I had to come back and pay tribute to someone very special to me. I'm going to be speaking to Mr. Paul Rubens. The rest of you can stick around because I think we all need to speak to him because we didn't get to before we knew it was too late, if that makes sense. I hope my words are cathartic for fans, and I hope that everybody is having as good of time remembering him as I am. My world lost a very bright guiding star, and the world at large lost a consummate artist, a whimsical, fun energy. Both didn't take anything seriously and took everything very seriously. It was an energy that celebrated all things intricate, simple, all things joyful, all things rebellious. You left a walloping cachet, Paul, of performances and characters and brilliance that you're never gonna really go away. It's still hard to know that your influence has stopped where it was, I guess you could say. Words are somewhat lacking in describing how I feel about you, really, but I'm gonna try anyway. Right on the cusp of the pandemic, I had a chance to go see a screening of Pee-wee's Big Adventure and be part of a Q&A with you afterwards. For whatever reason, it didn't gel. It was mainly monetary, but that's a lame excuse because I could have found a way. Had I done that, this is what I would have said to you. You, sir, are a nuanced, brilliant character actor. Matilda, Batman Returns, Mystery Men, Blow, all of the guest appearances and guest voice spots that you've ever done. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I mean, come on. All of those are a testament to how talented you are and also to just how layered and interesting all of your ideas were. They didn't land with a lot of people, but the people they landed with, right to our hearts. All of those characters were completely different, but they all had your signature, I'm the smartest guy in the room, but I would never make you feel less than vibe, the artistic flourish and attention to detail that your fans grew to know you by. I was utterly shaped by your wit, your goofiness, your intelligence, your rebelliousness, your spunk. I was shaped by that more than I realized until I started looking back and reflecting on things that have occurred my whole life that you were the epicenter of. Your Facebook posts even. I mean, one of them was someone put a twirly slide in the middle of their house. You kept me aware of all of the things that help keep us all young at heart. Pee-wee was both a blessing and a curse for you. I know that the studios, the people who decided to make a lot of money from that, they kind of co-opted a beautiful organic thing that was supposed to just be a beautiful organic thing, and then it turned into you being intrinsically forever tied to a character that was supposed to be a movie or two. But I have to say, through old PW, I saw you turn the table on the narrative of who's cool and who's not cool, who has power and who doesn't. I watched the nerds, which is basically sensitive, smart people. I watched you elevate nerds and give them the power, give them the sass, give them the cred. It was really, really powerful for me to see that as a kid. You gave me the inspiration to just be myself. Even if I had to curtail myself a little bit for people who I could tell at face value wouldn't be picking up what I was putting down, which you had to do a lot, I think. Even though I would have to do that on occasion, I knew that I could still create a world that was safe for me, that was magical, and that I could dwell in most of the time because I watched you do it every Saturday morning. To me, that was the most powerful thing that anyone could have showed me. And I did live in my imagination most of the time. From the Pee-wee character, I learned so much, though. Like, not just intangible things. You would show us how to do crafts on occasion, weird crafts, little kid crafts, not like, oh, how to make a bird feeder out of a pine cone. Like, kids don't think of shit like that. Your crafts were more rooted in dynamic imagination and let's see what happens when we do this. And those are my kinds of experiments. I learned how to sarcasm my way out of any situation. I learned that you have way more in common with people than you think you do. So just keep reaching for a thread for you all to be able to hold on to, and you'll find it. I learned how to connect the dots. La 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 la. I had the Pee-wee's Playhouse playset. That thing was as important to me as all of my Barbies. And in fact, I would actually use my Barbies as these big giant Amazon women, and they would run around and chase Pee-wee. Oh no! I passed it on to my oldest daughter, and she was able to play with it. And then it was in a storage unit that was sold out from under us. Long story. But you are multi-generational, and you always will be, I think. Now that I'm an adult, I remember when your Broadway play came out, and I think Entertainment Weekly did like a retrospective of your career. When I saw those photos for the first time, I saw you as a man instead of my beloved best friend from childhood. It was a weird feeling, but I was always attracted to you anyway because of your spunk and spontaneity and just who you were as Paul Rubens and as Pee-wee, believe it or not. I know. Just for the record, you're a dreamboat. Sexy. All of your parts work beautifully together. Your skin, your hands, your smile, your voice. And I know that people saw you as Pee-wee because that's how you were introduced to us. That must have been hard for you. And you didn't deserve that as a byproduct of such a magical character that gave so much to so many people. Just for the record, if I had seen you in a club across a crowded room, I would have instantly been attracted to you, and I would have made my way to you and talked to you and dated you happily. Shame on those of you that had the opportunity and didn't because of what society or the entertainment industry foisted upon this beautiful man. For what it's worth. You are such a dynamic storyteller and such an engrossing presence that even as you digress into another kind of side quest, kind of side story, I am enwrapped completely. You could be reciting a recipe. You would still be as entertaining as if you had a script and a costume and all that. And that is the mark of a true performer, a true it factor, and a true artist, in my opinion. You shone really bright, even when everyone was trying to make you not shine. There's a reason why comedy and tragedy are represented together, because without tragedy, you can't know comedy, and without having a sense of humor about things, tragedy is just so much more dismal and hopeless. The Pee-wee character kind of kicked your ass. The second Pee-wee movie was very dark, angry, early adolescent phase, I don't know. It just had an angry vibe to it, and I wish that they hadn't even made that movie, and they had just let you make the movie that you wanted to make. I heard it was the Pee-wee story, which is, it starts out that he's in prison or something to that effect, and it's kind of the dark underbelly of this light, happy character, and I would have loved that movie. But they didn't let you make it, and I know who they are, and they know who they are. We still got a movie that's still iconic, knowing that you wanted to be a circus performer and that you went to circus camp and that your final performance had your parents just like clutching pearls because it was so daring and there were so many skills involved that they didn't realize you had. It's just icing on cake on cake. It's just so cool. I know that you had a lot of tragedy that went into the mix, because there always is. In some of the interviews that you've done, I just got the impression, because I can feel people's feelings pretty strongly, I got the impression that you know what it's like to be alone, but that instead of choosing to be lonely all the time, you replace it with appreciation for others that you love, doing creative things, collecting cool stuff, putting ideas to paper. That may have contributed to why you disappeared from the spotlight in the later years. You didn't want us to remember that about you. You wanted us to remember all the good stuff. Thank you for that. Fun side story. On my first trip to Vegas when I lived in Los Angeles, I saw the dinosaurs that are in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Of course, they weren't all lit up green and red. They were just, I could barely really make them out. It was like a mirage. It was like, are those the dinosaurs from? And they were. I connected to something from so long ago in my childhood, but that was so pivotal and shaped me so much. And it was like it was all real in that instant. And it was like you were waving hello to me. it was a truly magical moment. And I've had so many like that throughout my entire life, just for a few seconds focusing upon small but wondrous marvels of the world that really are what keep us engaged in our environment and in this life that we're living. If you rejoice in the small stuff, the big stuff is even better. And I feel like that was always why you could rebound and keep going and be better. Keep trying to put Pee-wee's suit on for us, because you knew that you were one of those started off small and now you're a fixture in everybody's hearts, if that makes sense. My sister called me and told me that you had transitioned. She's a huge fan too. She may have even hipped me to Pee-wee, so I have her to thank. In that moment, it was the first stage of grief, and it was denial, and I said, oh no, and I just sat down on my bed and cried for a while. And then me and my 3 daughters had plans to go to the zoo that day. My oldest daughter said, hey mom, if you don't want to go, that's okay, I understand, and we'll just do it again some other time. And I was like, no. Paul would not want me to sit around and be bummed out. He would much rather I go somewhere and see those small wondrous marvels and connect with animals and connect with my family. I think he would have wanted that more. That's what we did. Of course, now that you have transitioned and you're no longer physically with us, but your spirit is still here and always will be, people are pulling out the old clips and old interviews and all that and posting it, which is really cool. I've watched so many videos that I learned something new about you. So many, in fact, I feel like a fake fan almost. I think what I am most enjoying about this whole situation is that I am getting to know you now as a human, as an artist, as a man, as a person. You were just rolled into my favorite people category, and I never really stopped to think about it. When I was younger, I didn't really want to know who was behind the curtain. And the reason why I didn't want to know is because I think I was afraid. For the last 10 years, it's just been a shit show of people I thought were wonderful people that turned out not to be, or shows that were institutions for me. It turns out it was just not what we thought it was. And I think the thought of finding out that you weren't the person I felt you to be, somehow it would have really messed with me back then. But thankfully, there's so much information available. Before, when in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, nobody really had a way to share what they knew about someone, but now we do. So it's been so cool. I've learned so many new things about you. But speaking of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, most of the people who interviewed you didn't know what to do with you. I heard through the grapevine that the studio didn't want you to be Paul. They wanted you to be Pee-wee forever. Give you a million different iterations of the Pee-wee character, and you were actually wanting to transition away from that. Again, that's what Big Top Pee-wee was, I'm sure. That's hard to watch. It's hard to watch people mishandle you and not give you a pedestal and play the straight man. They're always kind of snarkily trying to chink away the character, or trying to make you feel bad for the character choices that you've made, or just try to insinuate that you were some crazy person that didn't deserve the spotlight. I mean, I don't even know what their problem was. It just was the culture back then. So I much prefer you when it's just you talking, like on a panel, or when you would go on Conan O'Brien, because I think Conan really understood you. And he's another one of my childhood idols, someone that I love equally but in different ways. So to know that you guys were friends is just does my heart good. He lets you shine because he knows how good you are, because he's good himself. For you to be able to be the best version of Paul or the best version of Pee-wee or whatever, just felt like people were always trying to make you something you weren't, or scandalize you or whatever, but they would never let you grow up. What the fuck? I can understand if you were frustrated by that. You're just so good at being with people and relating to people and talking to them, even though most of them don't get you. You still have the grace and the wisdom and the sweetness and the kindness to just be good to them. Thank you for that. And for anyone who tries to bring up your rap sheet that I don't really even believe was necessary nor factual, in my opinion, but for anybody who tries to bring that up as a way to cheapen your legacy in any way, they can suck it. Oh no, sorry, I misread that. They can chalk it up to a human being that was living life and doing what humans do in locations of that nature, and also someone who was living in the shadow of a character that no one would acknowledge was just a character. So of course there's going to be a fallout of some kind when there's that type of misalignment. And as far as anything else, for you to have such a immovable place in so many people's hearts, for your art to have endured, your kindness and all of the things that are kind of your hallmark and signature, for all of that to have endured, there's no way that could be possible if you had ulterior motives. And I don't believe for a second that you would ever hurt anybody in any way. And in light of all of the scandalous things coming out of a certain industry, I'd be willing to bet that maybe you were going to speak on some things, maybe try to right some injustices, and they got you first. Allegedly, that's what I say happened, for what it's worth. All of the personal touches that you put on everything, all of the sharp as a tack ad-libs, all of the simple but effective takes to the camera or moments of a wink and a nod to something that just really were, it's magical to watch. All of the rapscallion and ne'er-do-well rebellious things that you do, they're so fitting. And I wouldn't be mad at you if you did any of the pranks that you've done, because they're all really good-natured and really silly and really satirical in a lot of ways. I wish I could have talked to you, sat down and talked to you, and just really got to know you on a personal level, but that's the beauty of the kind of performer and human you are. I feel like I do. There wasn't a huge barrier. You were a private person, I think, but you weren't a closed book. If anyone asked you a question, you'd be honest with them. You'd probably kind of flit around it for a second and make a joke, but you would never dishonor someone's genuine interest in you. And that's so refreshing and so rare. I speak of you in the present tense because you are present to me. You will always be part of me. I think persona of Pee-wee was so impactful on me, but you as Paul Rubens was really impactful too, because everything that I saw you in, I knew was going to be good, and I knew your performance was going to be amazing. So again, you were like a guiding light. You guided me to some really amazing art that helped shape who I am. You yourself are an artist that shaped who I am. So you're never going to go away. You will always be present tense to me. You can't destroy matter. You can't destroy energy. So even though you're not in the physical sense here, you will always be here. You will always be somewhere around me. In your whole career, you did all this self-sacrificing and you took care of people. You've been helping people up and lifting them up and pulling them up with you. And then some of them moved on to bigger careers, but you still kept doing it. You still kept throwing back to things that you loved, that you knew other people should know about too. You know, maybe that was locations that you shot at. Maybe it was a store that you went into, maybe whatever. It just seemed like you were always pointing to things that we should know about. And so I have always kept that with me. I've kept the whimsical edge. I've kept childlike wonder for things. I gasp and am very excited about butterflies every time I see them. I'm thrilled every time I see a great performance. There's no glaze of adulthood sadness over me because of you. And all of that you've done for so long, for so many people, just to be misunderstood very often. You did it for us. You did it for the people that really, truly get you. You know that we would do the same for you. To know that is amazing and heartening and steals my wool. It's been hard to realize that you're no longer on this earth plane. I can't thank you enough for all of the wonderful things that you have inspired throughout my life and my kids' life. I can't thank you enough for the hours of pure joy and excitement every time I watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is what I adhere to. I loved Pee-wee's Playhouse, but it was also network TV, and I know it wasn't your idea. It was someone else's idea, and you just rose to the occasion because you knew that there were so many young people that you could inspire, and boy howdy you did. I defer to Pee-wee's Big Adventure more. It's a masterpiece. If you can watch a movie over and over and over again and get the same amount of joy, that's a masterpiece. I think it's tremendous. I think you're tremendous and always will. And as I was sitting on my balcony, I looked up and there was no other stars in the sky. And there was just one beautiful twinkly star that had a glint of red to it. I know it's the Lion's Gate portal, and it's the star that's present when the Lion's Gate portal is open, but I also know that you were waving hello to me because I was reaching out to you in my mind and reliving all this good stuff, and I'm still gonna do that. So thanks for saying hi again when I really needed it. And I love you. From the bottom of my heart, Mr. Paul Rubens, thank you for being my dearest childhood friend. Thank you for still surprising me after all these years. Thank you for taking us seriously in the most irreverent and kind of F you way. You adored your fans, but they could also SpongeBob, Fred, Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory, Steve from Blue's Clues. You inspired so many anti-hero heroes. Ground zero of so much creativity. I will still always and forever enjoy your work, your art, and I will pass you on to others because you deserve that. You deserved a lot more than you got at the end of the day. But at the same time, I'm glad that you kept true to yourself and you didn't end up being something you really aren't. I love that story.